Good afternoon. It just turned high noon here in Texas. And about 20 minutes ago, oh, yeah, it took a load off my mind. It was time for that stuff to come out of me. I restarted the movie I was watching. It's called Kill the Messenger. I had never heard of it before. Starring Jeremy Renner. Everybody knows him. And it's really about uh, what appears to be, because I remember when this story started breaking on the San Jose Mercury News. This was that whole Iran Contra deal and how it was funded. And, we need to remember events like this. I'm going to finish watching the movie and then I'll probably do some more checking on the news. But let's not forget that Ronald Reagan was questioned after leaving office. I don't recall. I don't. Oliver North, all that. It really does appear, based on what I've just heard so far, which is supposed to be testimony right from the was that the CIA. See, I think I'm going to title this Plausible Deniability. Yeah, recently I watched a program about all these it's called Black Book operations, which even the President of the United States isn't informed on them. But they're allotted upwards of $30 billion a year in all different kind of branches of the military and CIA and so on there. And they do that so that these people can operate freely. And the president can sit there and honestly say, I don't recall, or I don't know. But that was confirmed by an expert just the other day in a video I watched. There's no claims against that video. There's no one that could refute it. It's about time for me to hook up something to that solar panel, although all my batteries are pretty topped off. Anyway, and testimony is given right now. This was witnessed by San Jose. It's pretty accurate as far as the number. This guy, in a short time, had working on behalf of the CIA, had imported from Nicaragua. That I know of, they mentioned so far was 4 tons. He got busted for 4 tons or something like that, or they had paperwork on. But he was doing it for the Sandinistas. Let's not remember, because it just came back to mind that Ronald Reagan said early on, I think just as he was beginning his presidency, is that we must have no communist presence in Central America. And we just quoted Ronald Reagan word for word. So it does look like if you want to blame somebody, see, this is where I come down on the line. I had a guy, I don't know whether it's a real channel or not, Christopher, or Mr. Christensen, I think he only made one video, but he's kind of explaining, while he leans toward the conservatives, he does understand, just like many other people like Lewis Black, that pretty much all politicians are full of shit. Matter of fact, I remember now how this movie started off, was showing the Contras. This is that whole Iran Contra thing, and where did the money come from? Well, they used a little bit of seed money to get into the drug dealing business, and essentially, you could go back and say, based on what I know and what's been accurately reported, is you could blame the crack cocaine epidemic, which specifically targeted the poor populations, primarily poor blacks and poor whites. They weren't excluded. Anybody who had $3 to $5 was in, they had, like one guy just testified, it was raining cocaine, or there was the CIA's man was delivering more cocaine than they could sell. Yeah. They were just raking in the dough. So let's try to not forget that there's a ton of evidence to support the very real possibility that part of today's, because still you go to right up to a point, just about MLK Boulevard in Austin, it goes from meth back to crack cocaine. Anybody there will tell you, working at the Whataburger on MLK, that there's still the majority problem is still crack. I guess a lot of it because it's hard to get meth less than $10, and because that's a very small amount. It's and they're less trusting of meth dealers. If they want meth, they go further. But what's sold in those neighborhoods is still the crack cocaine, because cocaine is selling so cheap. Meth is fetching pretty good prices. The purer it is, anyway. So I remember the crack decades. It went for more than. And so when you get to digging around on any president, you're going to find some dirt. I guess I'll make this my closing remark here at high noon shootout here in Pflugerville, miles away from the heart of Round Rock, Sam Bass territory. Is that, I guess my point is that we've actually, at this point in time, after having had one presidency already and then 4 years to go after him, they haven't found one bit of dirt on Donald Trump. No actual real dirt. Minor bookkeeping errors and hanging on to documents that he's legally entitled to look at and possess and have. He's still, when you're the ex-president, you're still entitled to a morning security briefing. Most of y'all don't know that. You see, the press doesn't want to educate you on shit like that. All those classified documents found in Trump's home in Florida, those are all perfectly legal for him to possess because of his standing as all living presidents have the right to a national security briefing every morning. Obama didn't even attend them. Let me repeat that. It was widely reported that Obama would just sit in the kitchen in his dressing gown, smoking cigarettes and having coffee, while the National Security Agency and others met and had their report in the Oval Office. He never showed up. It was notorious that he never showed up to national security meetings because his interest was clearly with, to quote him from the videotape that I personally witnessed, he said, my Muslim faith. And he did everything to increase the division in this country. He was probably one of the divider-in-chiefs, one of the worst. He was the one that regularly had in Black Lives Matter for dinner parties all night, booty shaking. Just want to remind you, now this is going into it, and they still haven't been able to dig up any dirt, nothing like Obama. How many countries did Obama bomb after getting the Nobel Peace Prize? Record, 21 countries? Bush, I love that part at the funeral. That's one of the few little segments I saw. I was just flipping through channels, and if you watched it, Shrub, George Bush Jr., walked up and he didn't shake Obama's hand. He popped him on the tummy, good and hard too. You can tell Obama was kind of stiffening up because he knows who's running the show at that point in time. He was kind of telling him, "Get your ass out of the way. My wife's coming right behind me." George Bush showed Obama exactly the amount of respect he deserved, which is zero. Although, to be straight about it, It was Bush that caused the economic collapse. Let's get that shit straight. I'm kind of like Lewis Black. I like to tell the story straight. Now let's hope that during this next uh, Trump administration, actually, I'm all for his annexation deals. We need to go ahead and annex Canada and Greenland. Uh, like I've said before, Canada contains our distant early warning systems. We can't afford to have a socialist state in control of the supplies, the roads, and all that shit going to those remote radar locations that will catch the Soviet Union the minute that their ICBMs get more than about 1,000 feet in the air. See, radar works at line of sight. It has to be, what they call flying under the radar. If there's a mountain in the way, or if there's the curvature of the earth is in the way, let's see, that radar is going at earth curves like this, radar goes straight out like that. That's why we got our distant early warning, the DEW line, up in Canada, is so we can see it the minute any ICBMs, because that's the shortest route to get to America. Let's not forget that there's still a lot of fucked up people in Russia. Well, it's obvious. They attacked the Ukraine. So, yeah, Canada's being so badly mismanaged and shit like that, and we have such a vested military interest in Canadian and our early warning system. Yeah, our satellites can be taken out, with a couple of EMPs. Just lob up a few rockets straight out, and you'll take out, it's really not that hard. So, just want to remind you is that when you're looking at a president, you need to look at all their dirt, and the dirt on Joe Biden has been suppressed for 4 years. He'll be dead before we get a chance, and then he can always go like, oh, when he's finally under questioning, just like Ronald Reagan had to endure questioning when he was already going into Alzheimer's. And whatever happened to Hunter Biden? Why isn't he in prison, or shouldn't he be in prison after all the laptop shit? And sorry, I can see my own eyebrows leaning down there. When that happens, I just yank them out. So I'm making my point is that, Reagan was not a great president like a lot of y'all think. He's the one that really started us towards really major debt through Keynesian economics. And he was behind that whole Iran-Contra deal. He says he isn't, but he was. He's the one responsible for it. Now, you're going to say it's great, he was fighting communism, but to fight that communism, you were getting that money by selling crack cocaine to black folks and poor white folks. You see how fucked up that is? You see why I took the time to take this video? Even though shortly I got a trip coming up probably within the next hour. They're going to notify me. They're preparing it now. They'll probably get it to me before lunch. They said 2 o'clock, which means after lunch. The automated system did, but they're always early. They'll knock it out. I just got to keep that fucking mockingbird from shitting on me again. He got me up here somewhere on the shoulder. Can't find it. I'm going to have to. And then the second time got me on the sleeve. I already cleaned it off. I'm trying to show up spotless. And by the way, I don't like these pants. No, they're 42, but only when my gut is empty. Which I just did. But anyway, I'm going to finish watching this movie sooner or later. I'll probably watch it twice. But I remember when this was the Nothing newspaper, San Jose Mercury News. This one reporter broke the story with the help of a woman, and it really turned out that it was the CIA that was bringing in a shit ton of powdered, almost, like the 86%. That's the best you can get without doing, that's the best you can get out in the field without bringing in and really going under I think after that you have to use benzene or something to clean it up any higher. Some type of benzene compound. And they were using, I'm sick of this shit too. And Ronald Reagan, it was repeatedly guilty of the Orwellian doublespeak. You know, revenue enhancement, instead of saying outright, just saying what it is, tax increases. I'm not a big fan of government. It's not working very well for me. Maybe I ought to just leave it right there. Just remember that there's a lot going on in this country. All these bureaucracies that pass from one president to another that are operating off the books. And we don't really know what the outcome, you know, who's doing it. We may not know what the outcome is for a long time, or who exactly was behind it. But it's kind of fascinating to watch the beginnings of the story. That, you know, that was Alex Jones is one of his biggest, you know, things he started reporting on right off the bat was back in '95 was what was already proving up to be a solid case about what appears to be a fact that the CIA was behind the importation of tons and tons and tons of cocaine to be made into crack cocaine, and really decimating, you know, the black population and a lot of whites. Let's not forget it's probably about the same amount, but it's a percentage-wise, they really decimated a higher percentage of. Please, I've seen plenty of white crackheads, but they really did some damage to the black community. Actually, it turned it into a non-community. You know, crackheads are just, you know, oh gosh. I'm going to finish with this. In my own home county, a long time ago, in the black community, there was, you know, the white community was doing meth, but they were still doing crack cocaine. And one night, a black mother left her child, 11-month-old infant, with a known crackhead. We got to smoking a female infant. He got to smoking that crack and stuff like that. Got himself an erection. He may have used other instruments. All I know is my own physician told me it was the most terrific thing he'd ever seen. He was called to the emergency room too before the child was life flighted. But a fucking crackhead actually managed to somehow penetrate and rip open an 11-month-old female infant. Crack cocaine will make you batshit crazy. So will methamphetamine. Always keep in mind that almost nobody steps into these offices, president on down, and steps out with lily white hands. They all got some shit and blood on them. Plausible deniability.